Hello.
Hello. So today we're talking about Hotel New Hampshire.
Hotel New Hampshire. Not to be confused with Hotel Rwanda.
Yeah, or the Hotel New
Or-
Hampshire, as I kind of, every time I type it in, I'm like, is it the? Anyway,
It is not it is just Hotel New Hampshire. And this was a wild ride of a film.
we like to say, oh, I've never heard of a movie, it must have been pretty obscure. But how do you reconcile that with these cast members?
Yeah, stacked cast. We have Wallace Shawn, the guy
Wallace
from
Shawn.
Princess Bride. We have Beau Bridges, who is Jeff Bridges' brother, which is like something I didn't know until afterwards.
Makes sense.
But you see it in his face once you know that. You have Jodie Foster in one of her earliest roles, I think probably even her maybe second big role. And you have Nastassja Kinski as Susie the Bear.
And that's kind of how we came around to finding this movie. We've been doing a series, watching the entire filmography of Nastassja Kinski, Cats, Tess,
Cat people,
Cat People, yeah, Cat People,
not cats.
yeah, Cat People, Tess.
Harem. Harem we watched, and in the special features on that DVD, there was a documentary about Nastassja Kinski talking about how her filmography mirrored her life. And we found that super interesting. And in that special feature, they showed some clips from this movie, and it shows Nastassja Kinski in a bear suit.
As Susie the Bear is how she's credited.
And we're just so intrigued. We're like, okay, we need to see that movie. We have to have that in our Nastassja Kinski collection.
Yeah, and I had been tracking down movies and ordering their Blu-rays or the best versions available. I think I want to give movies the best foot forward when I see them for the first time. So I've realized, if it's a movie from 1984, was this? Mm-hmm. The transfers that exist of it might not be very good. And I had read that the American Blu-ray that was out of print or older had a bad transfer. They said it was a DVD quality transfer. But I eventually did find out that there is a German edition, which I ordered, and it's a really nice package with a trifold. I mean, it's a very caring release, but again, this seemed like a weird signal to me because for a movie that is apparently obscure enough that we haven't heard about it, that's catching us off guard, it has this caring release from another country. So it makes you wonder, of course, there's that international element to it. And I'll say before we get into the plot synopsis, if we recently watched a Broy Deschanel video about how Freudian slip. Forrest Gump is a conservative icon, and that the idea of a Pecaresque story is utilized to kind of be an allegory of a person's life where they go through all these little adventures and maybe fail upwards, or they get to see their entire time on Earth amplified through them, all the current events and such. Or maybe they're just failing around having little adventures. If Forrest Gump is a steelman for conservatism, Hotel New Hampshire is a strawman for liberalism. And that same internationalism, I think maybe that is why...
It didn't do so well in the conservative 80s.
Or we had to go find it, weirdly.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, it's...
Yeah.
We'll say before you do the synopsis, this movie has been accused of tonal deafness, right?
Yes.
And it has some of the most absurd lines, dialogue.
Find a doctor. Please find a doctor.
Yes.
The story is so all over the place that it will give you whiplash.
1 minute it's wacky, the next minute it's tragic, and it never gives you enough time to breathe and to feel those things before moving on to something completely different, before changing the tone on a dime.
We had talked about this recently. Did you ever look up or find out what the ham sandwich reference was?
No, I should look that up.
There was something where they were working on a play, or they make a play that's called Ham Sandwich. And it's a comedy and a tragedy. I guess that was a reference to Fable 3. Sorry that's obscure.
Okay.
I thought for some reason it was not as obscure as that. It's a tragicomedy. It was like what I
Okay.
was saying.
Never heard of it. So, yeah. Well, this movie is based on a novel by John Irving by the same name, Hotel New Hampshire. And John Irving is a novelist, probably best known for his novel, The Cider House Rules, which was adapted into a movie, and he actually won an Oscar for that screenplay.
I love the Cider House Rules.
Pretty good. Tobey Maguire's in that one. Dramatic film, for sure. And then his first novel, or his first adaptation of a novel, was The World According to Garp, starring Robin Williams, which I really liked the first time I saw it.
I've not seen.
I'm not sure if it holds up, so who knows. I also read his book, A Prayer for Owen Meany, in school, and that really sparked my dislike for John Irving, so I have kind of a weird history with him. His first novel that he wrote, which is not well known, was a picaresque novel. After that first novel, he refined his style into be more of these sweeping family dramas, which are classified as tragicomedies. That's what I saw them described as.
Yeah, like the ham sandwich.
Exactly. So it's like everything is comedic, but everything is also tragic. Probably the books are just as tonally weird as this movie.
I mean, do we want to bang out the synopsis? Can we do a competition?
Yeah.
Just say the synopsis?
A competition?
Well, who can say it more briefly? I don't know. There's so much that you weigh in this movie that you're like, should that be mentioned?
I would love to.
As
I would
relevant?
love to try.
Go for it.
Okay. Hotel New Hampshire is about the Barry family. The parents meet as teenagers working at the Hotel New Hampshire in, I think, the 50s.
I think earlier than that. It
Maybe
seemed
earlier. Maybe during World War II. And there they meet Wallace Shawn's character, Freud, who is a Viennese man who has a bear who rides a motorcycle. It's weirdly important for the story. They get married after that summer, and they have a family. We flash forward to this family, and they have 5 kids. The eldest is Frank, who is queer. That's his main characteristic, and he also likes taxidermy. We have Jodie Foster and Rob Lowe, who are possibly twins. They're pretty close in age, and they are weirdly in love. It's a bizarre relationship.
Love is an understatement.
Yeah, Obsessed. And then we have Lily, who is the younger sister. She has a growth deficiency, so she stops growing at 10 years old. And so she just looks 10 years old for the whole film, even though it takes place over a span of years. And then we have the youngest, Egg, who is played by a very young Seth Green, which is crazy to see. You would not recognize him. And this family is very close, and they're living in a town called Derry, where the father is unhappy with his life. I think he's teaching at a school after he has this Harvard degree, which we learn earlier in the film. And so he decides he's going to recreate the Hotel New Hampshire. He buys a abandoned girls' school in their town, and they renovate it to be the new Hotel New Hampshire. Hilarity ensues. Rob Lowe loses his virginity to a prostitute/waitress who works and lives at the hotel. Jodie Foster has a crush on a guy named Chipper Dove, who's a total asshole and who ends up gang raping her halfway through the film, which is bizarre and just comes out of nowhere. And so the family is they're kind of over it. They're looking for a way out, right? And so they get this letter from Freud, the Viennese man, saying, hey, I have a hotel in Vienna. Why don't you come and help me run it? It needs help. And so they say, wow, what an opportunity. They sell the girls' school, the Hotel New Hampshire, and they move to Vienna. But on the way there, the mother and the youngest, Egg, are tragically killed in a plane crash. So obviously that affects the family. And they're not having the best time in Vienna. The hotel is filled with terrorists and prostitutes, basically. So it's like kind of a lowbrow place. Sussy Bacas. And this is where we meet Susie the Bear. She's working for Wallace Shawn's character as a receptionist in a bear suit. And he calls her his smart bear. And she steals the show. She's really funny. So they're living in this place in Vienna, and they become embroiled in a terrorist plot. The terrorists who are living in this hotel want to blow up a nearby opera, and they want to take the Barry family as hostages because Americans get more money, they get more attention, you know? And Rob Lowe is warned about this plot beforehand, and so they kind of foil it. Wallace Shawn's character blows up the bomb before they can. He dies. The dad goes blind, whatever. They win the Medal of Freedom, and they say, let's go home. So they go home. In the meantime, Lily, the young girl, has written a novel about her growth deficiency and about the family, and it does really well. Frank, the eldest brother, is her agent. And so they move to New York City. They're living in the Ritz-Carlton, living large, you know? And Jodie Foster and Rob Lowe finally consummate their disgusting incestual relationship in a horrible, horrible scene. And they just get it out of their system, they're done. They also run into the rapist from earlier, and they have this crazy revenge play that they stage that freaks him out and is a pretty good revenge. And then Jodie Foster becomes a movie star. She's very successful. She marries Junior, who's a guy from earlier in the film, doesn't matter. The younger daughter's second novel doesn't go so well, so she's depressed, and she decides to kill herself. She jumps out of a window, and it's a very dramatic scene. And so obviously the family is shooken by that. They decide to buy the third Hotel New Hampshire, which is the first Hotel New Hampshire where the parents met. So they have this big hotel all to themselves. Rob Lowe and his father are just living there alone. Again, the father's blind, so they're like, does he know no one's here? Does he know that the hotel is empty? The dad says, we need a bear. Every hotel should have a bear. Where's our bear? And so Rob Lowe invites Susie the bear to come join them at this hotel, and they hook up, and then the end. All's well that ends well.
Yeah, I mean, I would calling a hooking up is like undermining and cheapens it at the end there.
They fall in love.
Yeah,
perhaps.
They end up together.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hooking up in the movie. Yes. I guess now, okay, so my non-spoiler synopsis after all that is, this family just cannot get it right. They renovate a series of hotels, all the while getting gang raped, like you said, coming out
that's
as
a non-spoiler?
angrily coming out as queer, weirdly, getting bullied, watching each other kiss each other and do weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're very sexual libertine, is maybe how you would put it.
Yes.
And they never quite fix a hotel up enough. The locations in this movie are really cool, but they always get to like 60% done fixing up a hotel, so that it's more the Airbnb ethos is how I'd put it. Like, they're not exactly great hoteliers.
Yeah.
And then weirdly on their way to the next hotel in Vienna, because life in America has been hard for them. Mm-hmm. Their dogs died, etc. On the plane, they have to take different flights. It explodes and the mom dies. Oh, I guess that's a spoiler.
I think you're just doing the same.
No, and I think these are just crazy things. And then they fix up another hotel, not quite. The second half, there's terrorists. You know what I mean? It's like that's a shorter synopsis for sure, but also a little less spoilery. But the spoilers can't ruin this movie because it's the delivery of the lines. It's the absurdity of the situations. It's that when she gets gang raped, it's on Halloween night while they're running to go get an ambulance for some other absurd tragedy. Mm-hmm. They run to go get an ambulance and they're caught with a net in the woods. There's actually another person caught with them in that net, but that person just weasels out of the net. That he runs off to like the black boys' dormitory, and they make it like weirdly extra racial when he gets the vigilante mob, and they take their sweet time, really, truly, going back to the woods and trying to find and help. That when they find her, it's just handled so ham-fistedly. Yeah,
we get the craziest line of the movie, where she's, covered in filth. She looks truly traumatized, and she gets up and she says, "Just another Halloween."
Just another Halloween, kid.
Right after being violently gang raped, which is bad.
When they come into the house and everyone's standing around the door to receive her after this terrible, terrible atrocity, it had happened to be the day they put the dog down And she walks in the door and she's like, I just needed to go to take a bath. Where's Sorrow? Because Sorrow was the name of the dog.
Yeah.
And the dad and mom just look at each other. Whoopsie. Kind of.
We just euthanized him this morning.
And you are left being like, is this a joke?
Yeah. It's bizarre.
What is going on? And similarly, like we've referenced a couple of times with their older brother, he was foreshadowing the bullying capabilities of this group of 80s kids. And they're like shoving mud in his butt and like wrestling him in the woods.
Yeah.
And they rescue him and he goes, I really am queer though.
I really am queer, you know.
I know.
It's okay, Frank.
And they're just like, we know, Frank. We just move past it.
Or later when Rob Lowe has a bad love encounter and he turns to his older brother Frank, he goes, maybe I'll turn queer.
That line comes after the brothers spy on Jodie Foster and Nastassja Kinski having a little love affair. Rob Lowe is obviously super hurt because he's in love with Jodie Foster, his sister.
Lest you forget.
And so he's pouting downstairs and he says to Frank, maybe I'll go queer too. And his brother's like, yeah, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll have to go queer now.
No, John, I don't think it works like that.
As if he would know. Frank is the only person we never see hooking up with anyone.
Another early example of an insane oddity in this movie, they have an opening gala for their shanty hotel. And it's an example of tone deafness. It caught me off guard and it was jarring. There's no music playing in the scene. There's no background music or anything. There's not a band, okay, but they don't play anything on the radio. You could hear a pin drop in this opening night gala for their hotel, and they're all sitting around in this like side room of a girls' school, basically. The chairs are bolted down. That was a really weird, probably metaphorical, but a weird detail to include, that all the chairs are bolted down. They say it multiple times. Everyone's just like negging one another and being sad. It's the most bizarre scene. And yeah, you just think, why didn't they put music on this scene? They almost notice when they play background music like 2 scenes later. The next scene happens to have like happy trombone music or whatever. But that whole scene just is like awkward. Awkward silence.
Around and around the big wheel goes, and where she stops nobody knows. Everybody rides the big ride.
And another funny, weird, bizarre thing is Sorrow the dog, who is, at the beginning of the film, is this older dog that farts all the time, but they love it. And then when they get their hotel, they're like, okay, we can't have this farty dog around all the time. And it's clearly elderly, so they put it down. But Frank, the older brother, which we've seen reading taxidermy books, he gets the body from the veterinarian somehow, and he's like, I'm gonna stuff it. Jodie Foster's gonna love it. It'll be great, And so he stuffs Sorrow the dog, and then we don't even see who does it. We don't know, but he hides it around the house at different points. And it's in a closet at one point where Rob Lowe is working out with his grandpa, and it pops out of this closet, and the grandpa dies of shock.
Yeah.
Dies of shock. And then we never talk about Grandpa again.
Sorrow the dog actually, he gets a kill count in this movie almost.
He does. Another thing is when Seth Green and the mom are flying to Vienna on that fateful plane that's going to crash. They're cuddling up together. Oh, we're in for an 8-hour flight. And somehow Sorrow the dog is on the plane with them, like as if they would ever let someone bring a taxidermy dog on a plane.
They probably did back in the day.
Maybe,
probably happened all the time.
And so they're cuddling up with this dog, but then of course the plane crashes and we see Sorrow the dog washing up on the shore with the plane wreckage. And then there's just this narration over with Rob Lowe saying, they found Sorrow's body on the coast of South America or something like that. And you're like, okay, what about your mom and your brother? Like, okay, we're just gonna move on.
The other crazy Sorrow the dog bit was that Rob Lowe takes a quick trip to make out with a girl that doesn't have bottom teeth awkwardly at a party. And I don't think it's truly This is a movie you have to pick your battles about what to elaborate on why and how, because it is so scatterbrained and of left field. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do someone the disservice of telling them all these crazinesses, but Rob Lowe's making out with a girl that has no bottom teeth, and they hear a scream, and yet again, it's like Sorrow the dog trying to kill someone from the afterlife. Like, it comes up a lot.
There's a lot of sexual hijinks in this film, a lot of people hooking up with different characters and, you know, literal incest, of course. But I think Rob Lowe has the most sexual partners, so I think it'll be kind of funny to list them off. First off, we have the redhead waitress / prostitute who he loses his virginity to. She says at one point he's like running in the hotel and she says, "Come see me the next time it rains, John." And so he takes that literally.
It's so pitiful, bro. It's so crazy when he shows up at her door, bro.
And I mean, they all kind of know that she's prostituting, so the brother and the sister give him money and they say, go see her. She said to come see you when it rained. And they have this intercom system. And so they listen to him lose his virginity because they paid. This is what we paid for. We got to listen in. And then he hooks up with Junior's sister, who has dentures, and she takes them out before they kiss. And she says, you know, I've always wanted to find out if it feels better. Does it feel better without my dentures in, Rob? And it's kind of implied that she's like teaching him how to kiss, but he's been hooking up with the waitress. And then from there, he goes to hook up with the bitchy cheerleader, who Jodie Foster hates, and because she's like randomly at their New Year's Eve party.
Same
and that's night. Yeah, and that's when Sorrow the dog in the bathtub ruins that for Rob Lowe.
Cool, yeah.
And then he hooks up with one of the terrorists from the Vienna hotel who warns him, oh, they're going to take your family hostage and she's going to die. She knows by telling him this information, she'll die.
Bro, and I gotta say this one because this is crazy to me. Because she goes, they're going to kill me. I've never done it. Can you do it to me? And he's like, you've never done it? What do you want to do? And she's like, I want to try everything once, but like in a really pitiful way. And then he's like, everything? And she's like, yes. And then they have their gross sex. And then he's like getting up and she's like, are you done? And he was like, what else do you want? And she was like, was that everything? And he was like, I think so. And it's the most like sad thing, dude. It makes, it's just like,
it's pitiful.
It's
and
too much.
They're in her grungy, horrible apartment. And
she immediately dies.
She immediately dies right after that.
She doesn't get a chance to dry out, bro.
No,
She's shot still wet, bro.
Yeah, it's intense. And then, of course, his sister, which you want to talk about
His sister and he have a fucking 8-hour marathon incest fuck sesh.
Yeah.
And which routinely returns to the clock, ticking by the hours. They are routinely, multiple, maybe 3 times, interrupted by their younger dwarf sister who knocks at the door coyly. Are you still in there? You don't want to you don't need to eat? That's another gross part, is she keeps asking them if they want to get lunch and dinner, and they're like, no, we're not hungry.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, that's crazy that you took the time to illustrate that, like, the sex is making you not hungry. You're so entwined with your sibling. Mm-hmm. They do special effect sweat. They sweat them down, bro. They literally fast forward hump them. Fast forward effect. Humpity hump. It's crazy, bro.
It's a bizarre choice. It's probably why this movie's rated R, truly.
Couldn't say.
Bizarre. And of course, the crazy part about that is they're just like, oh, we'll just get it out of our system. We'll just have her all day fuckfest, and then we'll be done, and we'll be over it.
I've been having this problem with movies, though, lately. Like, weirdly, incest has been in movies that we've seen in one way or another. Twins,
White Lotus recently.
White Lotus, all these things. And I wish they'd stop. Mm-hmm. I wish they'd stop even putting that into the universe, man. Shut that shit down.
And then, of course, the last partner of his is Nastassja Kinski. And this is when he invites her to the final hotel so she can be the bearer of their hotel. And there's this really funny scene where she comes to him in the middle of the night. She comes to Rob Lowe in the bear suit. And she's like, I'm sorry, I couldn't stay away. She takes off She takes off the head and she's like, I'm so hot in this dumb suit.
I'm sweating like a pig in this dumb suit.
It is priceless. And then, of course,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, happily ever after.
Yeah, dude, that was obviously Nastassja Kinski was the reason we saw this movie. I'm not like a Rob Lowe fan. I didn't know he was a crazy villain. I'm not a Jodie Foster fan, to be honest with you, but it's curious to see her this early in her career, so young. She said that it was a terrible thing for her career.
Yeah, apparently she turned down roles in Splash, Terminator, and like another big movie to be in this.
But whatever, dude. Whatever. Thanks for taking the L. I think Nastassja Kinski is great in this. She's the best part of this.
Yeah.
Her delivery, her like again, I said she's like kind of sexed up, like
Yeah.
by
She's,
virtue
like,
of
sweaty.
being so sweaty in her mascot furry suit. And frankly, her furriness is the most heteronormative thing in this movie.
Yeah.
You know, to be clear. That was great. It's worth it, if not just for her, which is something that I've said about a lot of her movies that we've had to see lately. It's like, yeah, she was the good part of it. She's why you should see it. If you imported a Blu-ray from across the world, she makes it worth it. This other stuff is wild. But I liked the movie. I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars, but I liked it.
Yeah, I gave it 2.5. I saw in some reviews that people were referring to this as Lynchian, but this is like Twin Peaks if it was like slapstick. If it was like, it's like almost like they're winking at the camera at times. And I think something people talk about fever dreams, you know, in regards to Lynch.
I think that fever dream is like a people mean nightmare when they say fever dream.
Yeah.
Right? They're thinking Eraserhead is a fever dream. I think this is more of a fever dream. It's what people actually should mean when they say that.
This is closer to weird dreams that I've had than any Lynch film, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just as discombobulated.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no syntax. I mean, I don't know. You don't want to beat up on it.
No,
it was just like somebody who didn't know what dialogue would ever be. There's a scene where the kids who are in their own family hotel, and they're like, it sure does get messy in here. Oh, because none of us will clean. And you're just like, what? You know, or over and over. They have a family gag about crossing past open windows.
Just keep passing those open windows.
You know what he always said. I just keep passing the open windows.
Keep passing the open windows.
And you hear it 3 times before they explain it to some other character. Because every time you hear it, you're like, what? You know, like it's approximately foreign. And
Yeah.
there's the Swedish saying, to hold them against the wall. Where you're like, excuse me? You know what I mean? What does that translate to? They keep saying that, and then they say, oh, it means like don't jump out of a window and commit suicide, as long as you don't commit suicide.
Persevere.
And then, of course, you know, that's some foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Which is handled in the most, again, ham-fisted way you could possibly imagine. Also, I want to say there's like an untapped 3 blind mice kind of vibe going on with this movie.
Totally.
Because Wallace Shaw and Beau Bridges both go blind. He passes along his makeshift
Bat.
blind
He's got like
stick.
a baseball bat. That's his
Yeah.
blind stick.
So you were just kind of like, huh, weird detail. There's iterations because it's like they're really using that generational element of storytelling, right?
Yeah, like this generational trauma that you pass down that like continues on.
Yeah.
It
So
is
it was
crazy.
really good. I mean, there's some great moments. We also, this is kind of unrelated, but similarly, like we just watched The Stone Tape, a 1970s BBC folk horror thing.
Yeah.
And that movie is super infamous for the line where the one guy just flips out and yells, "It's in the computer!"
It's in the computer!
And that's like, this movie has a lot of lines like that. Like if you made a supercut of just ridiculous lines, that's this.
Oh God, I love it.
I don't know whether you're dying or trying to come.
Oh, damn it! Damn it! Damn it!
What the fuck else would Pop call it?
The thing never runs. He's always trying to fix it, too.
The dawn is such a wonder to the blind.
So many like what the fuck moments for sure.
You wince.
Yeah.
You wince through this whole movie.
You're just like, no, they're not going there. And then they go there.
And it just comes out of nowhere a lot of the times. I didn't see a lot of it coming. I did see the plane crash coming, the plane explosion.
Right.
As soon as they said, we'll follow on another plane, I was like, that plane's going to crash. And
That
it
one's
did.
going down. Yeah.
So,
I would like to end on this review from Letterboxd that I think sums it up perfectly. It's from Gibson8, who watched this movie in June of 2022. They gave it 1.5 stars. And it goes, what a mess. If you were ever curious what people mean when they speak of tonal problems, look no further than the jolly shenanigans of the Barrys, followed a few minutes later by a violent gang rape. The sequence of scenes is jarring as we witness Lowe lusting for Foster and being seduced by the hotel's waitress, but then in the next scene, there are heartwarming moments with the younger kids. A unique mess.
yeah.
And you know what? God bless this mess. We loved it. I highly recommend, even though it's a 2-star movie, it's a really fun ride. And even though we maybe spoiled large parts of the plot,
Yeah.
that's not what you're there for. You're there for the jolly shenanigans.
Also, yeah, I mean, nowadays a 2-star movie would be like, avoid it. I think this is a 2-star where you're like, you should have sought this out, right? People would say Batman Forever is a 2-star movie.
Sure.
Are you gonna not
People
see
love
it?
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Check it out.
Check it out.